in the last 7-8 weeks? What's changed? What have the Americans developed? What have we procured? What have we built? What we've added to our forces that would change the outcome from the 5-week air campaign we had back in March and April? Nothing. They're talking about introducing that, what's it called? The Black Eagle, whatever that hypersonic missile. They're talking about using that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. All three of them
let me tell you something. Doug McGregor actually just sent me this while we were on the air here. Thought I might use it, but I might find it interesting, and I bet you will too. This is from Ben-Gvir just minutes ago. Mr. Prime Minister, you said that a strong prime minister tells the president of the United States yes when possible, but no when necessary. This is the time to tell our friend President Trump no. Time to tell him no. Now is the time to do what is required, necessary, strike Hezbollah, unleash the hands of our fighters, and restore to the north in Hezbollah. So we asked the question, what's going to happen, whether Netanyahu is going to listen to him. All we have so far is what President Trump put in this Truth Social here, is that I had a very good call with Netanyahu, and there will be no troops going to Beirut. Any troops are going back. But then you have Ben-Gvir saying, yeah, now it's time to tell him no. What do you think is going to happen with this?
Yeah, I mean, for the Israelis, you almost, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but you almost have sympathy for them having to deal with Donald Trump. Right. I mean, I don't have any for them, of course, but, this idea that they are dealing with a person. It was 5-6 days ago, Donald Trump put out a message saying that the deal was at hand.
23 May. He said it was largely negotiated and it was just waiting on his approval.
Right. And because I remember that one very clearly, because in the middle of it, he had that it still makes me laugh out loud. He's talking about all the ships and how the crew on the ships are going to get home to their wives and they all can, thanks to me, your favorite president.
Yeah.
I mean, just how do you deal with someone like that? Right. How do you actually, if you're an adversary, it's one thing, you're dealing with a mad person, but if you're an ally and now you're back to Henry Kissinger, where it's dangerous to be America's enemy, deadly to be its ally. But when you have a mad emperor in charge. And so again, I don't have any sympathy for the Israelis here, but certainly you can understand that, my God, with this guy every 15 minutes, he's hammering something else out on social media that contradicts what he said, in the previous post. Ben-Gvir, of course, that's expected. Ben-Gvir, he's a psychopath. He's actually he's actually a convicted terrorist.
Do you have some sympathy for Trump to having to deal with him? I mean, I'm just asking.
No, I don't, because Donald Trump's the one who put himself in this position, right? So, I mean, Donald Trump the Israelis have to deal with the Americans. The Americans don't have to deal with the Israelis.
Well said.
We have other options. We have other, right? I mean, as well, too, it's just not in our strategic interest, not in our moral interest, all kinds of reasons. But so for the Israelis, they're stuck with Trump. And so, but Ben-Gvir, he was convicted as a terrorist in an Israeli court. I mean, he and Bezalel Smotrich are being investigated by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. Will likely result in arrest warrants being dispatched, just like there are arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. Bezalel Smotrich, by the way, just marched in the Israel Day Parade in New York City, along with a host of other, war criminals and wannabe war criminals, who came from Israel to march in that parade in New York City. That was the parade, of course, that the New York mayor was castigated across the country for not attending. But why should he, when Bezalel Smotrich and many other, Israeli war criminals are a part of? But I mean, this here, again, it gets back to me, Danny, this idea for the Israelis, this is the best opportunity they have. Their vision of Israel, greater Israel, of taking what's necessary, of completing their dominion in the Middle East, of meeting their biblical boundaries, for Likud, the party of Benjamin Netanyahu, the party that's been in power in Israel for most of the last 4 decades or so, or at least seems to have been in power most of the last 4 decades. I mean, it's in their charter that there will be Israeli sovereignty from the Mediterranean to the Jordan. And to do that, you have to annex the West Bank. You have to finish your conquest of Palestine. And to do that, you have to isolate the Palestinians. And in order to do that, you need to do things like create buffer zones in Lebanon and in Syria. You need to take Iran out of the picture. I mean, so strategically, this is the opportunity the Israelis have waited for a very long time. Now, in terms of the settler movement, as well as just others throughout Israel, including members of Likud like Benjamin Netanyahu, the idea of Greater Israel, and I should say the idea of Greater Israel is something that no one opposes who has any political significance in Israel. Greater Israel is supported by every Israeli politician who actually matters anything. But, this idea then of here's our opportunity to get what Greater Israel is supposed to be. And go back 120 years, 110 years, 100 years. Herzl, Jablonski, all the early Zionists spoke about Lebanon as being part of Greater Israel. This idea of finally having this opportunity that was given to them by the October 7th attacks to carry this out, and then having Donald Trump in the White House. It's interesting to see how much they would have gotten away with if Harris had won. I think it probably similar. I don't know if they would have gotten this war with Iran with Harris, but they certainly would have gotten their invasion of Lebanon somehow, right? I mean, the Biden administration, as far as we know, Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein, Biden's top two Middle East guys, they are the ones who gave the Israelis the green light to launch their invasion back in 2024, as well as all those killings and everything else. So I think the Harris administration would have allowed the Israelis to continue their conquest of Lebanon, would have allowed their buffer the Israeli buffer in Syria to continue, would have said, hey, just, you can continue with your annexation of the West Bank. Just don't let us hear us about it. Right. So it would make their annexation of the West Bank slower. But I don't think the Harris administration really would have blocked it in any meaningful way. But I don't know if the Harris administration would have gone along with this war on Iran.
Who knows? Yeah. Biden never did. So he had limits. So that they may have well.
Yeah.
And very big limits. But
yeah. And even looking at people like Sullivan and Blinken, all these people that, you and I, we don't like, to put it that way. I don't think they would have, and I have very little respect at all for those men. But I don't think they would have gone along with anything like this. Yeah.
They just have some limits, which is not good.
But it kind of gives you the point then that could Israel have gotten what it wanted without attacking Iran? And I think they probably could have, and it probably wouldn't have, and then always you have the specter, the threat of war. But of course, that's now just, now I'm just navel gazing and speculating because, obviously,
Well, let me ask you to do that one more thing in the last few minutes we have with you. And that is on kind of a wild card here that doesn't get a lot of notice in the American media, but it does in some of the regional media. And a lot of people are starting to pay a little bit more attention to this who really see what's going on because they're concerned with looking over at Turkey. And what is your understanding of how Turkey is playing to all this? Because Israel has said on a number of occasions, at least some leaders here in the last few months, that once Iran is finished up, then we're going to look back over at Turkey. How is that playing in, and what is going on in Turkey as far as you know towards this?
So the Turks, haven't. Sorry, I've got a dog under my desk, and so it's. The Turks haven't made as much public noise about this as they did about Gaza. Now, of course, with regards to Gaza, what they did was essentially just make noise. And the same thing, too, with regards to Lebanon in 2024. The Turks made a lot of noise about it. Erdogan, said he was going to do something about it. And, of course, the Turks were never going to put their F-16s over Beirut or anything. When we're far away from seeing that. The Turks are not friends with the Iranians. And the Turks, certainly understand Israel, as you just described it, as seeing them as the next power that Israel has to contest for Israeli dominance. The Turks certainly have the largest army in NATO after the United States. They see themselves not just as a regional power, but as an aspiring world power. But they also understand that they cannot confront the United States and Israel in any manner that's going to have in any way that has an actual effect. So certainly, I think Erdogan and the Turkish government will put out statements. They will try and cast Erdogan as protector of the Muslim people, try and harken back to the days of the Ottoman Empire when there was by and large peace throughout many parts of the Ottoman Empire for long periods of time, and try and establish Turkey as the logical leader for the Muslim world in the Middle East or in the world following this war. There's a lot of, I think, hedging. There's a lot of positioning right now.
You talk about people playing the long game a while ago with Iran, but yeah. I mean, to what extent might Turkey be wanting to play the long game and saying, hey, you know what? You guys just pummel the hell out of each other and weaken both of you. And then in the wreckage, I'll come and elevate.
Yeah, I think the Turks certainly the idea of the United States pulling out of the region and then the Turks having this position militarily, but also to Turkey's relationship, its position in the world, just, where it is, in the Black Sea, in the Mediterranean, and at that crossroads of Europe and Asia, it's always going to be an important country. It's just a question of how they leverage what comes out of this war in terms of remade order. There's, you have that Pakistani-Saudi military alliance, which I think most of us are still trying to figure out what the heck that means. The Pakistanis say one thing, the Saudis say another. But certainly this idea that alliance, that relationship, because alliance is probably too strong of a word, but that relationship, that agreement between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia may be extended to Qatar and Turkey. And I haven't looked in the last week or so maybe that has gone away or maybe it's happened. I don't know. But, this idea then of what does the region look like following this war and the order that's being created as a result of this war. If there is a fracture in the American order, if the Americans have to abandon their bases in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, fall back essentially just to the Emiratis and to Israel, certainly that provides space then for a bloc within the Middle East. And you can imagine that'd be a pretty powerful bloc between Saudi Arabia and Qatar's wealth, the Turks and the Pakistani military capabilities, the size of both Turkey and Pakistan, their positions strategically, where they're located. That makes for a pretty formidable bloc. But does that make sense? Am I too much in the 20th century mind? Am I in my head? Am I playing Axis and Allies here? Right? Rather than, I don't know, whatever the version you play on your phone right now would be, right? Am I repeating the same 20th century mindset looking at this and trying to establish things, very much? I criticize it all the time. Kissinger and Brzezinski, the whole idea of a grand chessboard. But I fall victim to that myself all the time. That's how I'm trying to analyze Turkey's position right now, is in the scheme of this grand chessboard. And that's probably the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah, I don't know. The chessboard is going to, and has for millennia been a chessboard. Just the rules of the game might change here and there. Yeah. And I imagine that this won't be any different than that. Just the rules will change. But one thing I think is pretty confident I can say is that the old rules and the old game are being destroyed before our eyes. And we will never, in my view, emerge from this in a position of dominance like we were on the 27th of February.
Right. And they, the point I think people strive to with Turkey is Turkey stay in NATO? Turkey has been rebuffed forever, going into the EU. Okay. The Europeans don't want the Turks in the EU, and the tension there, the hostility there because of that. And now everything the Turks have seen with regards to how NATO has conducted itself, how the Europeans conduct themselves, do the Turks want to be a part of that? What benefit are they getting from being a part of NATO? Now, certainly being a part of the American alliance and having the support from the Americans, I think the Turks still see value in that. So I don't think Incirlik Air Base is going to close up anytime soon, as you may see, say, Prince Sultan Air Base close up or something like that. But, so these are all, I think, big, interesting questions that are coming out of this war. We, of course, have to get to the end of this war.
Right.
And, of course, we have to calm ourselves down and remind ourselves that war is a breeding ground of unintended consequences. We don't know what we don't know what things are going to look like. That's why, again, I would caution the Iranians to take it slow, to exercise their strategic patience, to follow whatever plan they have, and not to retaliate against the Israelis in a manner that would bring them back into war. Or even though they do have, I think, the upper hand, I agree with you on that. Just in terms of how I look at it, I think that where they're heading right now, how they've done so well because they've exercised patience, they follow the plan, they've been very strategic in trying to attain their political objectives. And I think going back into full-fledged war, even though they might, because look, say they dominate the Israelis and the Americans, and they're basically able to hit Israeli air bases, destroy Israel's air force. Say it goes that good for the Iranians. And then what do they get out of it though? I mean, what comes from that they don't get by exercising patience? At the same time too, I would fear that now you risk, if you do get to that point where you are dominating, is that when the Israelis use a nuclear weapon?
Well,
right?
yeah.
I mean, now you're getting all kinds. That's a whole other episode. Yeah, I know.
It is a whole other episode, but a very much genuine concern and on the table here, as well as some recent reports that Pakistan has reportedly given a nuclear weapon to Iran. We'll see what's going to happen with that. That could just be a wild rumor.
Yeah,
it could be very much true. That could be why they're so confident right now. I don't know, but it is something that is possible.
Yeah, the Pakistanis have said it for years now that they would give a nuclear weapon to some. They would sell it one or give one or whatever. I mean, this is certainly. The Saudis claim the Pakistani nuclear umbrella covers them. I don't think I've ever seen the Pakistanis say that. But yeah, there's all types of things here. I think the Turks are likely to get a nuclear weapon. I don't know how if you're Turkey, you don't get a nuclear weapon after the last few years, witnessing all this, witnessing all that you've happened. Like, you can't stand up to Israel. Why can't you stand up to Israel? Because Israel has a nuclear weapon. That's what it comes down to. And because of the problems the relationship with America brings. But yeah, so maybe you break from the Americans, you get a nuclear weapon, you join BRICS, and now you see Turkey performing and behaving in a way that you wouldn't have seen if Turkey kept its relationship with the U.S., stayed in NATO, and didn't get a nuclear weapon. I mean, that's what I'd advise the Turks to do.
So much stuff here. Yeah, we'll definitely need to get back into that because that is something I definitely want to get into here in the future. But for now, I appreciate you coming on today very much, and we appreciate you guys for coming on with us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
And we appreciate you guys too. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done that on your way out. We'll look forward to seeing you on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. I don't try to talk you into buying gold or tell you how to run your stock portfolio, but there is a way you can help us. Subscribe, hit that like button, and share this with somebody you love.